we're now currently on day 4, so I was just checking our agenda arrangements with the two main parties, barristers there. Today, we're coming back partway through some evidence with Mr. Lally. So we're coming back, and I just wanted to take people's views on how we proceed, just to make sure we're all on the same page on that, please. So if we can dive straight in on that. Mr. Hunter, how are you assuming we'll proceed today, please?
In relation to landscape and design, we indicated in the chat, I would like to ask Mr. Lally some additional questions. I'm sorry, I'm answering your question. Some additional questions just on Mr. Jackson's rebuttal note. And
in a sort of evidence-in-chief format?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then I understood that the cross-examination was going to be either completely or largely from the start again of Mr. Lally, then there's re-examination, and then Mr. Carr in chief, and possibly.
Oh, I think we're swapping around so that Mr. Jackson comes straight after. I missed off Mr. Jackson. So yes, Mum was indicated I probably have between 45 minutes and an hour's questions for Mr. Jackson.
But you're happy to start cross-examination again, providing you get that time to do the evidence-in-chief?
Yes.
Absolutely, okay. And Ms. Ogley?
Yeah, absolutely happy with that, Ma'am. No issues on that front. In terms of cross-examination for Mr. Lally, it's going to be a push to get it done in 2. I suspect we may be more like 2.5, but we'll go as fast as we can. I should flag now that we are going to be pulling out a lot of core documents. So I've just been scribbling down a bit of a list. And then once additional evidence in chief, but only on Mr. Jackson's second rebuttal note has been dealt with, obviously I can let everybody know what those documents are. We can try and get as prepared as we can be, and then we can move faster, hopefully.
Okay, good. All right, so we're all in agreement then. Was there anything else anybody wanted to flag before we kick off what's going to be quite a busy day, I think?
No, thank you.
Okay, right. Mr. Hunter then, did you want to address this rebuttal?
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning.
Mr. Lally, as I've indicated, I'm just going to ask a few questions about Mr. Jackson's rebuttal note. Do you have a copy of that?
I do.
Thank you. If you could take that up, and when you have it, go to page 2.
Yeah.
And in the introduction there, in the second paragraph, we see Mr. Jackson says the note has been prepared following the adjournment last Friday and following new evidence raised by Mr. Lally in his cross-examination. It addresses views from Wyston Road. So this question, in terms of your evidence on views from Wyston Road, do you agree or disagree that the evidence you gave in cross-examination was new?
I disagree.
Why is that?
Paragraph 4.11 of my evidence makes reference to the Sheila report in stating, and I quote, the site is visible from new residential development to the north within Spitter Hill and from elevated land in the wider landscape to the southwest, such as the approach along Wyston Road. So I was simply drawing reference to the fact that it could be seen from Wyston Road as stated in the SHLA.
Okay, just on that point, the description, elevated land in the landscape to the southwest, such as the approach along Wyston Road, could that be referring to the part of Wyston Road in the vicinity of the site access?
I personally don't believe so. I think it's a clear form of words that gives the southwest. It's clear to me that it's from the southern side of the valley, looking northwards across the valley to the site.
Thank you. There was a question. The reason for the adjournment was then to see whether there were reviews and what those views were from Wyeston Road. What is the answer to the question, are there views of the site and would there be views of the development from Wyeston Road on the other side of the valley?
There will indeed. Figure 8 included in the landscape, the LVIA additional note shows development beyond the field gate and the adjacent.
So we have the wireframe is figure 8, I think, isn't it? And then the photo montage is figure 9.
Yeah.
So we can see what we can see in that. And then we've got figure 10, as I understand it. Again, I'll be correct if this is wrong, but that's after the mitigation has taken effect.
Yeah.
Okay. So can I ask you to go back, please, to the text of Mr. Jackson's note, where he addresses this viewpoint on page 3 and page 4.
Yeah.
The conclusion of this section is that there will be a negligible visual effect turning into beneficial after mitigation has taken effect, I think. Can I just be clear about this? Is it any part of your evidence to give evidence on visual impact in a landscape visual impact sense?
No, I've made no reference to impact or no reference to the LVIA in my evidence.
Okay, but in urban design terms, could you just explain what you consider to be the effect of the development from this particular view?
I think what we can see in views 9 and 10 is that it constitutes a linear strip of development, or a ribbon of development, if you will, that runs alongside the bottom sections or the valley slopes, and really, in my view, confirms the overall impression of the development that is introverted, that is inward facing, that faces up to the road, but doesn't pay much regard to its broader landscape setting.
And in terms of the perception of the settlement edge in this location, would that stay the same or would it be different?
The settlement edge will change. The existing settlement edge is clearly denoted by the Red Row Homes development on the brow of the hill. Then we can see with the proposed development there will be a green strip, and then the more recent strip of development along the valley bottom. So clearly there will be a change to the nature of the development.
Can I just make sure I'm looking at the right plan? I'm just pulling it up electronically so I can see it better.
Figure 9 on the... What page it is? Figure 9, page 14, is the rebuttal. There's a second, it's the second last visualization. And one of the issues you raised in your main proof of evidence was the question of the relationship between the development and its context, both landscape and townscape context, and its integration into that. Can I have your professional opinion on the extent to which, from this viewpoint, the development would be well related to and or well integrated with its surroundings in landscape, in terms of landscape and townscape?
I think what's really characteristic of this part of the world is to see clusters of housing nestled into the valley sides in small groups, really enjoying the views out from the valley to the wider area, and for there to be a really strong interconnection between inside and outside, if you like, and we certainly don't see that here from this view. We see what looks like a very nondescript suburban roofscape in an elongated strip development.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else that you would like to add by way of comment on that note before I hand you over for cross-examination?
I think the other point that is of interest is just to sort of say the other location where the development can be seen from the southern side is the golf course. But I think it's important to recognise, which I don't see picked up in any of the evidence, that within the golf course there's a facility called the venue, and the venue serves as a community facility with quite a wide-ranging sort of programme of community facilities. I've actually got a printout from the web pages of the facility of the development, if that would be helpful, Ma'am. But there's car boot sales, dances, yoga classes. There's a vibrant sort of community programme, and it's actually the only community facility in the southern part of the town. So I just want to make the point really that the development will be seen from quite a broad spectrum of people, not just users of the golf course.
Okay, thank you. Can I, in terms of people who will see it from the Wyreston Road view, can I ask this? You've been to that point obviously on Friday, and I think you said beforehand. What did you observe anything in terms of the people? Were it just car users, or was anybody else using the road?
No, whilst I was there with Mr. Jackson, there were people walking along the road, and that's been the case when I visited the site on other occasions as well. So,
okay, thank you very much, Mr. Lally. Be with that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, a couple of points then, Mr. Lally, just before I hand you over. So I was going to say, are you happy the rebuttal shows all the views you're concerned with? But alas, there's a new view from the venue.
Ma'am, I don't think that is a new view. I think it's the same place as the golf club.
It's part of the golf club facility.
We've only looked at the entrance from the golf club, haven't we?
There is the access road. I think there's the access road. Well, Ma'am, unless Mr. Ali to answer, I didn't understand it as saying there is additional views we haven't got any viewpoints on, or no.
I've not heard about the venue beforehand. Can anyone help me with that?
Ma'am, I'll have to take instructions. As you say, it's not been raised before.
Okay.
As part of the demise of the golf club, it is owned, as I understand it, by the golf club.
Yep.
But they rent out part of the space.
But we all really need to be clear. I really need to be clear what I'm looking at. And I don't want to go to the entrance of the golf club. I need to discover I was supposed to go down to the venue. And also, obviously, the appellant needs to be able to respond to anything that comes up in order to be fair and so on. So, do I keep this note that I need to visit the venue and see views from there?
My point has never been, I've never made a point relating to impact, and I've never expressed any concern related to impact. What the reasons for refusal relate to the character, identity and the context of both the townscapes and the landscapes, and the ability of those that landscape to inform the design. And so my evidence is very much focused on, does the landscape inform the design? And for the reasons that I've set out, I don't believe that is sufficiently the case. So I'm personally not making a point about impact or concerns about impact.
From the venue?
From anywhere. I haven't made any points about impact from any view in my evidence.
Ma'am, can I just, and for
No,
Miguel?
just bear with me a
Yes,
minute.
sorry, ma'am.
I feel like I'm going slightly mad. I thought you were making the point that the venue was this community facility and it would be seen from here.
It was, the question that was asked was in relation to the community use, and...
No, bear with me and try and listen to my questions. So I understand you were asked if there's anything else you wish to add, and you said, I think that's right. Yeah, and you said, oh, well, the venue community facility, and I've got something printed off about it. Is that correct?
Yes.
So what I'm reading from that, or interpreting, is that you're saying you can see your concerns and the council's concerns from the venue.
The point that I was wishing to make, Ma'am, was that it's an attractor. It's a community facility that has various people going to it, and not just golf club users, if you like. And they access that via Wyreston Road.
Okay, so it's more that it will attract people along Wyreston Road. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and see, when we were looking at this view on figure 9, you were saying nondescript suburban elongated strip can be seen from here. Yeah, your words, not mine.
Yeah.
I'm just picking up from when we had your evidence in chief about it being characterised by fencing. Do we see the fencing here? Would we see the fencing from here?
I wouldn't say it was very prominent from that particular view, no.
Okay. Prominent from any view?
Certainly, I'd say from the Spitter Hill, looking down, looking northward down to the development.
So which figure would that be?
I mean, frankly, anywhere where there's an interface between the green open spaces and the timber fencing to the garden. So all of the residual spaces around the development will be publicly accessible open space, and all of the timber board fences will be visually exposed to that adjacent space.
Okay, so are you saying to me it's more from inside the site?
And its immediate adjacencies.
And so that would be, just put me on the ground very, visually, where would I be? What would I be doing?
If you'd be looking from Spitter Hill down to the development here.
Do we have a viewpoint on that?
Yes.
Yep.
Core document 1. The LVIA.
Right. Let's have a look then, just so we're clear.
Which core document references?
1.38. The viewpoints at the end.
What number was it again? Sorry, Mr. Dunton.
1.38, I think.
With 3.8.
That's the LVIA, ma'am. I'm not sure which viewpoint Mr. Lally's talking about.
Okay.
Not talking about a specific viewpoint. It's Would you like me to?
I just need to know, I don't know if I can be clearer. Obviously, we've got some viewpoints that we've gone away and looked at along Wyerstone Road. In understanding your case, I need to know where I can go on the ground to see your case. So we're talking about the fences. And then in knowing where I need to go, have we got that in evidence? So those are the 2 points I'm looking for. Can't be this ethereal, you can see it from somewhere around the site, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. I need to familiarise myself with where the photo montages are in the document. If I'm.
It's about 7 pages from the end of the Sorry, I didn't do a photo montage, so this week.
No, they're just viewpoints. So no, it's not. It's not actually. You won't be able to actually see it. One would see it. You'd be able, but one can kind of. You have to imagine, if you like. So, so I would say from viewpoint 2B and viewpoint 3. So you're standing up on the Spittle Hill. You're facing southwards towards the development. You'll see the backs of the gardens, the garden fences. Then. If you're looking...
From Acorn Drive.
Yes.
And that's the adjacent development.
Yes.
Okay.
And then if you're getting the oblique views from Premier Avenue, say, for instance, photo viewpoint 5, looking along the valley, you're likely to see the backs of the gardens there as well. Then if you're looking from the golf club, photo viewpoint, I think 6 and 7, looking across the valley, that's less clear to discern because of the mature hedgerows, the mature vegetation. So without a photo montage, I'd be less confident in making that case, particularly during the summer. So I'd say primarily they're local views from Acorn Drive and the immediate surroundings.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lally. When you're ready, then.
Ma'am, I think I am going to have to take instructions. I'm somewhat lost about this. I mean, I have to say, I find it extremely difficult to understand why anyone would mention a view if there's not a point to be made about what can be seen from the view. I don't know about the venue. We could have provided photo montages from the Acorn Drive viewpoints that Mr. Lally is now just again mentioning on the second time round during the week that we've been adjourned. We've not had that opportunity, and I have to say I am getting extremely frustrated, and I need to take instructions, I think, I'm afraid, ma'am. I'll see what I can do, because the last thing that my client wants is yet more time wasted at this inquiry.
But, Ma'am, could we just establish whether photo viewpoint 7 and photo viewpoint 6, they are from the golf club, and the venue includes part of the activities that I mentioned were, for instance, a car boot sale that's sort of the outside of, it's all part of the golf club demise. So to my understanding, viewpoint 6 and viewpoint 7 includes the golf club and includes the venue and its immediate adjacencies.
Is it in your proof at all, Mr. Lally? Specifically?
No, I don't reference anything to do with any visual impact.
Okay. I think the answer to the question is, I'm similarly lost. So that really tells you all we need to know about that point. So how long do you need, Ms. Ogley?
I think I probably need about half an hour just to take instructions and understand our position on this. And then, of course, it's a question of what comes next.
Well, Ma'am, I just want to fine, take instructions, but let's be very clear what has been said. It is not being said there is another view that needs to be considered. It is not being said that there is another photo montage that needs to be generated. Mr. Lally has been entirely clear that he is not identifying an additional view. He is saying the view that has already been identified is a view that will be enjoyed by other people aside from the golf club users. That's the sum total of what he said.
Yes.
And because they were attracted there for other reasons. He similarly, in response to your question, ma'am, where can I see the boundary fencing, has done his best to identify where it can be done. As he says, he is not making a landscape or visual impact case. It is not incumbent on him to produce photo montages. He has not requested them, and there should be no adjournment to produce one, I have to say. If there is, there will be cost consequences.
Can we just all remember to be kind to each other, because it is quite stressful when I'm trying to just deal with the planning merits, and I do need to be clear what the arguments are, and everybody needs the chance to put their cases. And it's really hard trying to do that when people are getting, this isn't life or death stuff. This is planning. I know that there's costs associated for people, but we do need to be clear about the views so that I can go out and address your concerns, Mr. Lally, as I would anybody. Now, all I'd say to you, Ms. Ogley, is when I was questioning Mr. Lally about them, he did say, in respect to the venue, he narrowed it down that his point was about attracting people along Wyerston Road, which is dealt with in your rebuttal from Mr. Jackson, which I think narrows it to more where we were expected to be. Just bear with me. And the fencing, Mr. Lally referred me to views already known to us. Yes, he made the point he doesn't have photo montages, which is a bit late in the day, so I see the fairness. But on the other hand, we've got to take Mr. Lally's evidence as it is. So I hope you can relay that to your clients.
I will, ma'am. I just have to. I'm sorry, and I'm not trying to be. I'm confused. I am confused about what the point is here. If there's no point about an impact from a viewpoint or something from a view, then it begs the question, why mention it? And I just need to consider it, really, with my team. I'm hoping that I can come back and take a relatively pragmatic approach, but I can't do that without instructions, unfortunately. And I need some time to consider this. And I hate to labour the point, but it's just disappointing that this is raised now. We could have dealt with all of this and just made sure that every point was just battened down so everybody understood where they were. That was the point of the adjournment. So that's all I've got to say on it, ma'am, for now.
I understand. I think as well, please trust me in this process as somebody that is in charge of the inquiry. And if I were to go away and think the venue was a huge problem, I would come back in interests of fairness. So I think if you can take a similarly pragmatic view and trust me on that, please take that into consideration.
Absolutely, ma'am.
So you want half an hour?
Well, I think we can probably cut it down. 15 minutes.
Let's start with 15 minutes. So if we come back at 10:45.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ms Ogley, where are we? How are we doing?
Ma'am, I think hopefully we have at least a semblance of a way forward. Firstly, I've just asked for a print screen of Google Maps to show you the actual location between the golf course clubhouse, as it were, and where the venue actually is, so that you can understand that. So I've just asked, I think that's on its way to Mr Robson sooner rather than later, to just get printed off so you can orientate yourself. I think the most sensible way to deal with that is most likely for you to go and see it, potentially on an accompanied site visit now, just to make sure that you understand where these points are being raised. I think in respect of the Spittal Fields point, I can probably deal with that.
Yeah, don't ignore it.
So I think we can go ahead, subject to just that copy of the Google Maps print screen being handed out.
Okay, all right. Is that okay, Mr Hunter?
Yeah, fine. I'm glad we can go ahead. Thank you. I think I might need to recharge them.
Is that what it is? Batteries?
Yeah, they're flashing.
Yeah, I was just going to say, ma'am, that there's been a slight technical problem with the battery, so I might need to quickly run around and change the batteries shortly.
Thanks.
Okay. Is there one I can have? Yeah, thanks. Oh, thank you. Let's see if this one works. Right, okay, whenever you're ready then, Ms Ogley.
Thanks, ma'am. If it's okay, I'm going to wait for that printout to just come through so that we all know. And also, I don't know whether or not you have seen this yet, ma'am, but we asked for extracts of the guidelines for landscape and visual impact assessment to go into the core documents. Now mine's flashing. And the council asked for the full copy to go in, which is absolutely fine from my perspective. But I'm not sure if you've got that through electronically. No. I think we have some hard copies of that on the way. In the meantime, perhaps we can make at least some progress setting up. I have a list of core documents that we're going to be going through, and there's a lot of them. So I don't know if you want me to just run through those verbally so everybody's got them at the same time. Yeah. Okay, so CD 4.2, CD 4.1, and I've tried to do these in the order that I'll be picking them up, but it might not be perfect. CD 7.4, CD 7.3, CD 5.6, CD 1.38, CD 1.40, CD 6.12, CD 6.26, then it's the GLVIA, but we'll need to give that an inquiry document number. Then it's CD 7.13, which is the document we all love. The stage 1 audit from Mr Carey was the appendix to his evidence. It's just got some photos in there, that's why we're going back to it.
Who's evidence, sorry?
Mr Carey.
Councillor's Highways proof, that was in his main proof of evidence, as I remember.
It was an appendix to his main evidence, yeah. CD 7.13.
Oh, yeah.
It is. CD 1.24,
Yeah.
CD 2.29, CD 5.8,
So 2.49.
CD 2.29, sorry, I think it was me, CD 5.8, CD 5.6, CD 2.12, CD 2.2, CD 5.4, CD 2.24, CD 2.23, CD 2.28, and then we may be picking up the 2 rebuttals from Mr Jackson, Mr Lally's evidence including his rebuttal, and Mr Carr's evidence namely Mr Carr's main proof of evidence and the appendices to that.
Oh dear. Does that work? You might want to see how you go if it's going to be over 2 hours, and then just take an appropriate break around about 1:45, 1 o'clock, something like that.
Yeah, of course, ma'am. Oh, right, they're all flashing.
Just get some more batteries now, apologies. That's extracting 7%.
It has been said, yes.
Sorry, did you say 1:45? Can you keep an eye on the time for me? Oh, this one's flashing as well.
Dan's will come back in about.
I've made Olivia inquiry document 7 and then the Google inquiry document 8.
Sorry, Ma'am, just so that. So GLV IA3 is IQ7 and Google Map IQ8. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, ma'am. So just before we go into cross-examination on IQ8, ma'am, what I would suggest there is just to draw your attention to where the venue is in respect of the golf course. You can see that it is some distance away, as indicated before the document was handed out. The appellant's position on this is that you should, I will invite you, if you're minded to so do, visit this on an accompanied site visit. I think that's the most effective way of dealing with the point.
And if it grows out of that, then I'll deal with that.
I'm grateful. Yeah. So I don't think we necessarily need to keep IQ8 out particularly. I'm not going to necessarily cross-examine on that. I think it can be dealt with on a site visit. So good morning, still Mr. Lally. Let's see what we can do this time. And also just to be clear, in terms of cross-examination already undertaken, I am going to restart because, in effect, otherwise the entire flow kind of gets out of kilter and it's hard to remember where we were and where we weren't. But at the same time, just to be absolutely clear from a procedural perspective, I don't expect to be told that I can't rely on answers that were previously given, because I think that's the fair thing to do to those questions. So we'll see how we go, but I'm just a slight marker down there.
I agreed, and obviously we're not expecting vastly different evidence, because that would be procedurally unfair as well. So, but I think everyone's on board with that. So it should hopefully go in the right vein, but if anything occurs to anyone, please do flag it up.
Thank you, ma'am. So, Mr. Lally, if we can just pick up this point in the additional evidence in chief first, see if we can understand where we're all at. I want to, in particular, consider, I'll try to properly understand the point that's being made. This is about fences and where fences can be seen from. Is that fair?
That's what I was asked, yes.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that I understand the position. So is it about fences and where they can be seen from?
My principal...
Can I have a yes or no and then qualify? Is it about fences and where they can be seen from?
Yeah. The inspector's question, I was specifically asked where fences can be seen from. So to that question, that's correct. That's what I was asked to respond to, and that's correct.
Mr. Lally, as part of your evidence in chief, as you say, the inspector asked you a question about where fences can be seen from, but that's because it was picked up in your main proof, and I'm going to be going into that in due course, And when we were here in take one of your evidence and cross-examination, it became clear that really what you were saying is that you had concerns about views of fences from Wyeston Road. Now it seems we're talking about views of fences from two other places, from the venue and from Acorn Drive or Premier Avenue. And I want to be just very clear, is that the sum total of your concern about these additional views from Acorn Drive and Premier Avenue and the venue? Is it about seeing fences?
No, so let's take each of those in turn. So you asked me about Wyeston Road, and just to be clear, the reason that we referenced Wyeston Road was because that is stated in the Sheila as a view can be seen from Wyeston Road, from the southwest, and I think at our last session, I therefore expressed some puzzlement as to why it wasn't identified as a receptor. So if we can just deal with Wyeston Road, that's how that came up.
Okay, so fine, Wyeston Road. You said you expressed puzzlement about it not being identified as a receptor. Okay. Are you content that that puzzlement has been sufficiently addressed as we stand today?
Yes, it's clear that the site can be seen from Wyeston Road in that location.
Okay, so again, I do need to be really clear about this so I understand the case that I need to meet. When we're talking about the venue, is it your position that you are concerned about views from the venue to the development and being able to see fences?
No.
Are you concerned about being able to see anything from the venue about the proposed development?
My proof doesn't deal with visual impact. What I sought to do was, I'm not making a point about how the development externalises its impact. The focus of my evidence is the degree to which the proposed design takes inspiration from its contextual setting. So it's actually the other way around.
So it's about the scheme taking inspiration from its contextual setting. Is that fair? Is that?
Yes, it's specifically the references in the two policies that are the focus here, and that is taking account of the context, character and identity, which includes the landscape character, and also in policy PD1, the relationship to adjacent buildings and landscape features, and the acknowledgement in the policy of the importance, particularly of sites that are on the edge of settlements and the need to enhance or restore their landscape character. So those are all points that are specifically identified in the policy.
You're not concerned about impacts from development on those landscapes. You're concerned that the development doesn't somehow take into account its landscape setting.
That's correct.
In responses to the inspector's questions, you specifically mentioned being able to see fences from Acorn Drive and Premier Avenue. What is it that you say is harmful or wrong about that, and where do you say that they can be taken from exactly? Because I have to say I found the answers to the questions somewhat confusing, so can we just make sure that we get it absolutely clear in our own minds what's being said about that?
Sure. What my evidence states is that the orientation of the buildings are orientated to the road, but at the expense of turning away from the adjacent landscape. So anywhere within the surrounding development where there is adjacent open space that is effectively grassland, which is shown, there's numerous residual open spaces around the development. In all of those locations, there will be exposed timber fencing.
Yeah.
And that will be publicly accessible open space.
Within the scheme?
Yes, I'm talking about the scheme, yeah.
So you're not saying that anywhere from outside of the scheme you can have views or sightings of close bordered timber fencing?
There's no photomontage evidence that can provide us with definitive proof as to whether it can be seen. I think it's very likely that it can be, given the extent of timber fencing that one sees throughout the development.
So when you say it's very likely that it can be, where do you say it's very likely that it can be seen from, please? And what's your basis for this? Where do I find it in your evidence, Mr. Lally?
As far as my evidence is concerned, the references are in paragraph 4.29 onwards, and it references the plan drawing which identifies the extent of timber fencing throughout the development, which is very extensive. So it would be highly surprising if all of the timber fencing was concealed from, in fact, it's more than surprising, it can't possibly be the case that all the timber fencing would be concealed from surrounding views.
So your position is that all of the timber fencing will not be concealed from surrounding views?
Not all of the timber fencing. No, I don't think I said. I'm sure some of the timber fencing will be. But we often see within the development that there is open space adjacent to the timber fencing. It's a characteristic of the development. And so, de facto, there will be openness alongside the timber fencing.
Mr. Elliott, surrounding views, you say it's likely that there will be some lack of concealment of close bordered fencing from surrounding views. I really hate to labour this point, but I need to understand the case that's being made. What surrounding views exactly are you relying on?
I don't have an exact view.
Okay. I think in your additional evidence in chief, so let me just find my notes because I'm in different notebooks now. You mentioned potential for a view from Acorn Drive direction, Spitalfield Hill, and I think you went to viewpoint figure 2B of the landscape and visual assessment, which is CD 1.38. Have I got that right? Have I understood your point on this?
from the... I couldn't be categoric that a view could be seen from the end of Premier Avenue. There's nothing that... I can't be categoric about that.
Okay. If I can just go to the layout plan, CD 2.23.
Yeah.
So we can orientate on this, can't we? Because what's helpful about viewpoint 2B is that we can see the existing pond.
Yes.
So we can see, if we compare that to 2.23,
Yeah.
you can see the existing pond, and you can see how that relationship is with the green heart of the proposed development scheme, can't you?
Yes.
There will be no views there, will there, of any timber fencing, Mr. Lally?
Well, if I was standing at the end of the cul-de-sac, and
Sorry, what do you mean by the end of the cul-de-sac?
the end of the Premier Avenue cul-de-sac, besides the pond that you're referencing.
Ma'am, so we've gone to viewpoint 2B in the landscape and visual impact assessment, and then I've gone to the layout, which is CD 2.23.
Yeah. So if we were to stand at the end of the cul-de-sac, we would look over the pond that you just referenced. The contours are running, we're looking, our view is in line with the contour line, if you like, so we're running with the contour. And we can see that the large circle there is the existing mature tree, so we'd have a trunk in the middle of that shape, and we would be seeing on the left-hand side of the trunk the timber fencing there for the development.
Perhaps, do you have a hard copy of CD 2.23? Could I ask, because I'm just keen we get another X marks the spot here. So that we all are absolutely clear what we're talking about. Yeah, if we've got a spare. Oh, maybe we can use the big one. Can we use the big one? Perhaps you could just, maybe Mr. Lally could come forward and just explain exactly where he's talking about on this plan. Because I think I know where you are.
So you asked me to draw reference to the balancing. You were talking about the vicinity of the balancing point here. So I was saying, if I'm standing at the end here and I draw a line, a direct straight line, and I'm looking across here, open. There's nothing to encumber my view here, and I'm seeing the back of the fences here, for instance.
Okay.
So is that viewpoint 5? Because 2B is, sorry.
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 So, no,
Sure?
Yeah, of course.
So I was looking at 2B thinking you were on Premier Avenue. No, sorry, I thought you were on Acorn Drive. But you're at the end of Premier Avenue. Yeah. So would that be viewpoint?
That's what I was being asked to focus on by just wait a minute.
Yeah. So would that be viewpoint 5 would be best to illustrate that?
It may be, ma'am. I mean, I was just going to it because it showed the pond, so it would help us orientate. But in terms of viewpoint 5, yes. So, I mean, I think you can see, is that the tree there at viewpoint 5? Yeah. Yeah, a mature tree. Yeah. Okay. So your concern is, let me, again, this is where hard copies aren't always as helpful. I think it's plots. Oh, can anybody give me the plot numbers? 61.
48 on the south side.
Yeah, is that right, Mr. Lally? These are the plots we're talking about here?
The one nearest to the tree.
The nearest to the tree, 61. Is that what we're talking about?
61.
61?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Can put it away. Um, simple point, Mr. Lally, but doesn't any issue about any level of harm, whether it's design or landscape, in respect of this particular point, and we're talking about plot 61 and the view across from the end of Premier Avenue, doesn't it depend on the extent to which it can be seen?
In terms of harm, yes. I haven't made any points related to harm. The points that I've made, referencing in turn the policies, use more positive language in terms of finding inspiration and complementing the setting. So, working with the grain of the land, working with the views, taking inspiration from the character and the qualities of the place.
Okay, I'm going to put the question a slightly different way. Whether in landscape or design terms, is it your position that being able to see any fence from the location that we are currently discussing results in harm?
No.
Right, I think we can put that away for now. Right, let's go to where we were originally going to go, away from your additional evidence in chief and into cross-examination proper. If we can pick up the decision notice, please, CD 4.2. It should be a short point for us, Mr. Lally, but it's fair to say, isn't it, there's no allegation there of any landscape or visual harm, is that correct?
Correct.
Then moving on to the committee report, CD 4.1, there's no objection, is there, in the committee report from the landscape officer?
No objection, but there is a reference, as I recall, to the importance of taking landscape character into account.
Sorry, Mr. Lally, what exactly is it that you are suggesting is relevant there? I think you're talking about paragraph 7.9. And again, I'm just trying to understand your case here, where the officer reports a key consideration in respect to this application is the impact of the development on local landscape and character, identity and setting. Is that the reference that you're talking about?
Yes.
It's quite obvious, isn't it, that officers took that into account and found no conflict between the scheme and that consideration?
No, I wouldn't say that. The reason, I think there are consistent issues relating to the character and the identity of the development.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Lally, where in the officer's report do you want me to go to see the point that you've just referred to?
I don't have a specific point.
Is that because there isn't any specific point about that in the officer's report to committee, Mr. Lally?
Okay. don't have sufficient memory of it at the moment, but I remember the importance of the landscape character was something that was emphasised in the report.
We're agreed on that point, Mr. Lally, but the point is it was emphasised and it was considered, and there was found to be no harm, no objection and no concern expressed by officers. That's correct, isn't it? It was considered.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. 7.13. Can you help me find it? I've lost my copy.
Is that paragraph 7?
Oh, it is, ma'am. Sorry, I'm misreading my notes. Yeah, it is 7.13. So 7.13 of the committee report, if you have that, Mr. Lally, what we can see there is that the Sheila is expressly referred to, and we can see that the officers note the importance of that being rated in green in terms of visual impact on the landscape. That's correct, isn't it?
Correct.
It also tells us that visual and landscape effects are likely to be minor.
It does say that.
It then also tells us, doesn't it, that the relationship to landscape and the character of the countryside is a key component of the design.
It says should form a key component of the site's design. It doesn't say is.
Mr. Lally, if officers were concerned about that, isn't it fair to accept that it would have been referenced in the committee report? The officers would have gone on to conclude, wouldn't they? This is what should happen, but it has not happened here.
I can't comment on our hypothetical.
Paragraph 7.17, please.
Yep.
It's fair, isn't it, that, again, one of the things that was taken into account expressly is that the site was visible in some local views and some wider views from Wyeston Road. Mm-hmm. So that wasn't left out of account, was it, Mr. Lally? It was known about and it was assessed.
That's right, it was taken account of, yeah.
Not only was it taken into account, but there was a clear conclusion that there was no unacceptable harm. That's also correct, isn't it?
Correct.
And we can also see the reference to the A52. The A52 in this location provides a defensible boundary, doesn't it, to the expansion of residential development in Ashbourne?
Yes.
Can we pick up CD 7.4, please? It's a statement of common ground.
Yep.
Paragraph 5.24, please.
Got it.
So here we can see that it was, again, agreed that the site was rated green in terms of landscape considerations in the Sheilas, that's specifically referred to again in the Statement of Common Ground, and did not raise any unacceptable harm, that landscape impact does not form part of the reasons for refusal, and it's agreed that there would be no harmful impact in either landscape or visual terms as a result of the developments. As I understand it now, you are not resiling from that statement in the SOCG, are you?
That's correct.
If we could go to paragraph 6.1. I just want to see how this is put, because I think it's fair to say, isn't it, that in areas of disagreement, what's said here in subparagraph 4 is the question is whether or not the layout of the development responds positively to the context, character and identity of this part of town. That's the wording that's used, isn't it?
And constitutes good design in accordance with the policies, yeah.
Yeah, but I just want to ask you about the part of town wording. That's about townscape, isn't it, not landscape?
No, I don't agree with that. The definition of layout, I've included a definition of layout in my evidence. Mr. Carr has included a very similar layout, definition of layout in his evidence, and layout is to do with the relationship between landscape, open spaces, built form and routes.
Yeah, I'm going to come on to that. All in due course, Mr. Lally. So you mentioned this, actually I just want to pick up another point first. The Rule 6, the Council's Rule 6, Mr. Lally, CD 7.3, if you could pick that up please.
CD 7.3.
Let me know when you have it. Yeah, yep. CD 7.3. Yep. And then if you just go to paragraph 5.1, we see there, don't we, the planning considerations in the council's case. And in that section, all that happens is that the reasons for refusal are restated, aren't they?
Yes.
The only place we see any issue about design being expanded upon is paragraph 6.3. That's correct, isn't it?
6.3. I don't have the time to read it all right now to say it's the only, so, but I take your word for it.
Oh, I'm sure Mr. Hunter will take you back if he thinks I'm wrong. Now, do take the time to read 6.3 and please do tell me where it says anywhere anything about landscape setting and the proposed development's failure to respond to it.
Inherently poor design concept and execution. And so what constitutes good design is set out in a series of criteria, both in PD1 of the local plan and DES1 of the neighbourhood plan. And those include various criteria related to landscape.
Can we agree that in paragraph 6.3 there is no wording in there that says anything at all about landscape setting? Those words are not found in that paragraph, are they?
Those words are not found in that paragraph.
We need to pick up your main proof, please.
Yep.
Which I now can't find. Here we are. This is just a simple point. You've already alluded to it already. It's page 5, paragraph 4.3.
Yep.
This is where you give the definition of layout. You tell us that you use the definition of the DMPO, but can I just ask you to pick up National Design Guidance, please? So that's CD 5.6. And if you can just go to page 6, please.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
I mean, there we can see, can't we, definitions of layout at paragraph 23 and definitions of landscape at page 29.
Yeah.
They are different concepts, aren't they?
They are.
And in the DMPO, they're defined separately as well, aren't they? Layout's a defined term in the DMPO, separate to landscape, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, you say in your evidence that the layout fails to respond in 3 ways. Firstly, relationship to landscape setting. Secondly, integration into surroundings via physical connection to site context, and thirdly, townscape and architectural character. I want to take the first, landscape setting. We went over this in your previous cross-examination, Mr. Lally, but it's right to say, isn't it, that you do not challenge the assessment or the conclusions of the LVIA?
That's correct, in terms of impact. Yep.
Agreed in terms of impact?
That's correct. I don't challenge the LVIA at all.
That's helpful. So we can agree, can't we, that the LVIA was undertaken in accordance with best practice and that is GLVIA 3?
Yes.
And there are two parts to landscape assessment in accordance with GLVIA 3. Firstly, it's about landscape character, and secondly, it's about visual impact. Can we agree that?
Yes.
And the two shouldn't be conflated, should they?
No.
The LVA assesses landscape character and value, and you don't assess that yourself, do you?
No.
So you will agree that the landscape character value is medium, because that's what the LVIA says.
Sorry, he's not a landscape witness, so he's been asked to give landscape evidence. So he said he's not challenging it, but it doesn't mean he can comment on it because in his professional capacity.
I'm sure Mr. Lally can give answers like that for himself. I need to understand paragraph 5.24, Mr. Lally, of the LVIA CD 1.38. We can see there medium landscape value, so medium, moderate. You don't challenge that, so we can agree it, can't we?
I think Mr. Hunter's got a point. We've had an answer that Mr. Lally doesn't challenge the LVIA.
Sorry, don't put that away. Paragraph 5.37 of the LVIA. I just want to pick up a couple of points here. It's quite clear, isn't it, that the LVIA picks up the potential for highway users on Wyreston Road. We can see that at 5.37 and 5.38. Can we agree that?
I'm continuing to be drawn into this.
Ms. Ogley, I think we've got the point that he's not contesting this.
I understand that, ma'am, but it's relevant to where I'm going, and I'm really sorry, but I am going to ask for some leeway on this because I feel like I need to put the points the way that I need to have them to my case.
You can always say no comment, Mr. Lally. Yeah.
I'm not sure of the question. It's 5.37 and 3.8 in the LVIA.
It's a simple question.
Yep.
The LVIA identified the possibility of visual receptors at Wyreston Road, didn't it?
Yes.
And we can see, and we went to this in your original cross-examination, Mr. Lally, we can see that we have a representative viewpoint, don't we, from Wyreston Road, and it's viewpoint 1.
Well, that's completely different, isn't it? Viewpoint 1 is not from the other side of the valley. So my only reference, as I say, to Wyreston Road was in relation to specifically how it was described in the Sheila, and in the Sheila it's quite clear that it's related to it defines the view from the southwest. and it's the open views. It's very clear to me that it's Wyston Road from the other side of the valley.
Okay, so we can't agree that that's a representative view from Wyston Road. That's fine. We can move on. I'll ask Mr. Jackson to deal with that. It's fair to say, isn't it, in viewpoint 1 itself, that we can see existing development, can't we?
Yes.
Including fencing and close-bordered fencing.
Yeah.
Paragraph 9.3, please, of the LVA. Sorry, I think I might just have my reference slightly wrong. 1 second. Yeah, sorry, it's 9.6, please. Do take your time to read it. It's the first sentence. Just to be clear, the LVA concludes, doesn't it, that the new housing will be observed within the context of the existing built-up area of Ashbourne, and that existing built-up area of Ashbourne is an inherent part of the landscape.
It does conclude that, yes.
And you don't challenge it?
I'm no comment. I can't, I don't have a view. It's not my area of expertise.
Well, viewpoint 7, Mr. Lally, please. Again, we went to these in your original evidence in chief. These are from across the valley, aren't they?
They are.
They all clearly demonstrate, don't they, that the existing development is a key feature of the landscape in this area, isn't it? You can see it plain as day.
Yes, you can. That's certainly true to say.
Heritage impact assessment, again, we picked this up in the previous cross, Mr. Lally, but I just want to be absolutely clear. A heritage impact assessment was undertaken for the proposed development. It's CD 1.40. I don't think we need to turn it up, but just to be absolutely clear for the record, you don't challenge anything in that assessment, do you?
No.
You don't do your own assessment of heritage impacts?
I do not.
And there's no contrary assessment from anyone else on behalf of the council, is there, in this case?
Not to my knowledge.
Your paragraph, back to your main proof then, please, paragraph 4.11 and 4.12. You mentioned 2 references. You mentioned the Sheila, which we've heard a lot about already, despite its brevity. So that's CD 6.12. And you mentioned the landscape sensitivity study, which I actually think is CD 6.26, not 6.18.
Okay.
But just let's double check.
No, you're right, I checked that as well.
Yeah, that's
Apologies.
Yeah. No, not at all. Anyone can make a typographical error. It happens to me a lot of the time. So again, we did address this in the previous evidence in chief, but what you do here at paragraph 4.11 and paragraph 4.12 is you quote from both documents and refer to both documents, and then you say, as these references convey, the site occupies a strategically important location, presenting the southernmost face of the town to the countryside beyond. Just to be clear, the only references you rely on for that conclusion are CD 612 and CD 6.26.
And policy PD1, which requires that development on the edge of settlements enhances or restores landscape character.
That phraseology, strategically important location, is not used in either CD 612 or CD 6.26 to describe this site, is it?
No, they're my words.
Bottom of paragraph 4.13, please. You refer to key historic entry point. You've got no evidence to support that comment, have you?
I did see the map in the design and access statement, which includes a historic map, and I believe Wyston Road is shown on that. I mean, it's de facto been there for hundreds of years.
But it's not about whether or not it's been there for hundreds of years, is it, Mr. Lally? The question is, what's your evidence that it's a key historic entry point, not just a road that's been there for a long time? You don't have any evidence to support your position on that, do you?
It's the only entrance point from that southern part of towards the town.
To make good any of these points, Mr. Lally, what you would have had to have done is actually carry out your own assessment, wouldn't you? And you haven't.
No, I believe that I can form a view about that. It's literally the only way of getting to the town from the south. I think de facto that is a key route, therefore.
Again, just to be absolutely clear about your case, Mr. Lally, what is it that you are inviting the inspector to take from your comments that this is allegedly a key historic entry point? What is it about your case that relies upon that comment?
What I'm seeking to identify here is that it is the site that really merits good design treatment. It's an approach. It can be seen from the approach from the south. It does de facto turn its face. It is the southerly face of the town. As you yourself said, the A52 constitutes a barrier to development that is very unlikely to be breached. It will therefore continue to provide the southern face of the town. And, you know, policy directs us to give particular attention to these edge of development circumstances. So that's what I'm drawing together.
But you don't claim any harm to that southern edge of the town in terms of views or landscape character, do you?
No, that's correct.
So where does this point go, Mr. Lally? It doesn't go anywhere, does it?
It goes to the point of the policy in terms of really respecting and enhancing the character, identity and context of the place, and using that as an inspiration for a bespoke design solution.
Can we go to CD 6.12, please, the Sheila? Some relatively quick questions. I'm not sure. I think you should turn it up, Mr. Lally.
Yeah.
It's fair to say, isn't it, that a Sheila is no substitute for an actual landscape and visual impact assessment, is it?
No.
The first sentence under landscape comments references minor impact on landscape sensitivity. Do you have that?
I do.
You leave that comment out altogether from your proof of evidence, don't you?
Yes.
You also leave out the fact that it was actually flagged as green. You don't make any comment about that in your proof, do you?
No, I don't make any point about impact in my proof whatsoever.
But what you do in your proof is provide a partial and incomplete account of what it actually says in the Sheila, don't you?
I'm just quoting facts that it can be seen in the approach along Wyston Road and is stated here to be, yeah, I mean, that's my sole reference, actually.
6.26. It's your sole reference.
My paragraph 4.11, I believe, is the only reference I make to the Sheila.
CD 6.26 If we can go to that, please. Obviously, you go to this in your proof. Paragraph 1.2.1, please.
Sorry, what was the paragraph again?
1.2.1, page 6.
Yep.
It's quite clear, isn't it, that this was a strategic assessment?
It is a strategic assessment, yeah.
Can we then please turn up paragraph 4.2.15? Again, we see there, don't we, that this was carried out at a strategic level, and then what it tells us is that even where something's been characterised as high sensitivity, there's going to be variations in the level of landscape impact, and what we need to do is assess the site at site level or field level.
Yeah.
Yeah. You haven't done either of those things.
I have not.
This was a point that I think I put originally in across Mr. Lally, but let's just see if we can agree this now. Again, it's really a bit of sort of comprehension more than anything, but we can see that the study starts dealing with Ashbourne on page 29. So we know that
29 of which document?
we're still in CD 626.
Okay. Yep.
So we can see on page 29, we start with Ashbourne. There's then a discussion, and obviously previously I put points to you about paragraph 6.2.23 and 6.2.24. I'm not going to go over the ground on that. But I just want to pick up 6.2.29 with you, because have a read of that paragraph and see if we can agree about what it actually says or does, because what it does there is it identifies a couple of fields of low sensitivity. It then identifies some small areas of land that are medium sensitivity, and everything else gets lumped together in high sensitivity, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Can we agree that's what happens? That's what it does?
That appears to be the methodology here, yes, I can read that.
And that reflects the fact that this is a strategic assessment and not a granular one.
Yes.
And therefore we have to be careful, don't we, in how we use that.
Yes.
It's not correct, is it, to use strategic level site assessments, strategic level assessments for sweeping statements about the value or otherwise of a particular site to landscape.
I don't think I make any sweeping statement related to value. I've just said, as these references convey, the site occupies a strategically important location presenting the southernmost face of the town to the countryside beyond.
Mr. Lally, strategically important implies value, doesn't it?
It implies it has a status within the town as a whole in defining its most southerly edge, yes.
Yes. You aren't a landscape architect.
Pardon?
You aren't a landscape architect, are you?
No.
I think we've already agreed that GLVIA 3 is the correct guidance for us to use for determining the value of landscape and visual impacts.
Yes.
Yes. I want to go to GLVIA 3, please, which I think is it IQ 9? 7, sorry, ma'am. Too many numbers. Have you got the copy that was circulated earlier? I think you might have a hard copy of it, Mr. Lally. I mean, by all means, if you don't want to answer these questions because you're not a landscape expert, then please do just say, and I will ask Mr. Jackson to deal with it in evidence in chief if necessary. But I think just a couple of simple points, hopefully, that won't cause us too much trouble.
Yeah, I think I have already made that statement, but...
Yes, I understand, but there are things I want to draw attention to, Mr. Lally, so bear with me. So with respect to page 21 of LVIA,
Yep.
graphs 2.23 and 2.24, can we agree that professional judgment is very important
Yes.
and that it needs to be based on training and experience
Yes.
from a suitably qualified and experienced landscape professional?
Yep.
You are neither.
No, that's correct.
Page 52, please. Paragraph 4.7. I mean, do take your time and read the paragraph, but what this tells us is that landscape professionals should be involved in design as early as possible, and that's to ensure that likely landscape and visual effects play an important part in the evolution of a development proposal.
So what page reference?
It's page 52 and it's paragraph 4.7. No worries.
Is there a question there?
I just want, can we agree that that's what the guidance advises?
Yes.
Excellent. And that was actually the case here, wasn't it? So if you're not sure about that, then we can go to CD 1.38.
No, I'm not looking to contest anything to do with the LVIA whatsoever.
But this is about scheme design. It's about the evolution of a development proposal, isn't it?
What is?
The paragraph that I've just taken you to in the LVIA, GLVIA 3.
About the appointment of landscape architects, yeah? Sure.
It says landscape professionals should be involved as early as possible
Sure.
in an iterative approach to ensure that the likely landscape and visual effects of proposal play an important part in the evolution of the development proposal. That's about design, isn't it? Landscape influencing design at an early stage.
Yes.
So if we can go to CD 1.38, please.
Yes.
Page 19, paragraph 6.1. And again, I don't believe this is in dispute between us in terms of what the LVIA says, but what it tells us there is that the guidance was followed and that the fieldwork and baseline findings and analysis of other environmental and technical topics have shaped the development proposals, and that means that landscape was taken into account as part and parcel of the design, wasn't it?
That's what it states here, yeah.
Sorry, Ms. Lally, are you disputing that? Can I just be clear?
I don't have a view on the methodology of the LVIA. You're asking me to confirm what is stated here, and I'm reading it, and I can confirm that that's what it states.
Did you read the LVA before you wrote your evidence, Mr. Lally?
Yes.
Back to the GLVIA 3, please. Page 77. Again, a very simple point here, I think. Hopefully there'll be nothing between us on this, Mr. Lally, but paragraph 5.12, halfway down, there's a sentence that starts, the first step in preparing a baseline is to review assessments that might be available at different levels. So we're talking about character assessments.
Yeah.
So we can agree that's the first step, isn't it? Understanding character.
Ma'am, am I going to be constantly asked about the methodology for an LVIA. It's really not. It's really not of relevance. To my professional view. I can continue to, confirm what you're stating if that's what you want, but.
I can take an adjournment to consider your question, Mr. Lally.
You can ask one anyway, ma'am, at a convenient point, a short one. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so what are you asking me, Mr. Lally?
I stated that I make no points to do with landscape or visual impact, and I don't wish to contest anything in the LVIA whatsoever. And so, is it therefore productive and relevant for me to be constantly asked about the methodology for preparing an LVIA?
And Ms. Ogley?
This goes to the approach that Mr. Lally has taken to design, and it's relevant.
I understand both points of view. If it's going to a design question at the end, it's legitimate for my learned friend to ask it. At the moment, it sounds a lot about landscape, which I understand why Mr. Lally's saying that, but I don't want to stand in the way if there is a legitimate, relevant point at the end of it. So as long as it's going somewhere to do with design, then I'm not going to object at the moment.
I think you're the nearest thing we've got on the council's side to these areas, and even if you aren't able to help, that's still helpful.
Okay.
So if you're content, Mr. Lally.
Fine, thank you for that clarification.
If we do want a short adjournment, I've got no problem with that.
Did you want to come? Shall we take it now?
That's absolutely fine, absolutely fine.
Did you want to finish that point?
I can come back to it, ma'am, because we've
Sure.
already broken off, so
Yeah.
it's no problem for me.
Okay,
Yeah, not an
right.
issue.
Okay, right. Let's come back at 5 past then, just have a comfort break.
Thank you.
Thank you.
ahead in GLVIA 3 to viewpoints and views, please. Page 107, if you will. Let's see if we can agree this. If you have a look at paragraph 6.16, viewpoints from which development can be viewed, and may include, we're mostly talking here, aren't we, about public viewpoints. That's what's most important to the assessment of visual effects. Are we able to agree with that?
Yes.
Sorry, I should just say I've skipped over some of the points I was going to take on character, because what I'll do instead is I'll deal with them with Mr. Jackson. So just to try and save time, if no points can be taken against me on that, and I see Mr. Hunter's agreeing, which is helpful, I'm just going to skip through those. And again, 6.19, a very quick point. What we can do there is we can use representative viewpoints, can't we?
That's my understanding, yeah.
6.21, it's fair to say, isn't it, that in terms of undertaking an assessment, if we go over the page to 1110, the emphasis must always be on proportionality, and that's proportionality in relation to scale and nature of the development proposed, isn't it?
I really feel that I'm being drawn into something that I'm not professionally qualified to comment on.
Okay, I'll ask Mr. Jackson. You're the only one I've got, Mr. Lally, so if it's not for you, then I'll ask Mr. Jackson to deal with it.
Yeah, and my evidence makes no reference to it at all.
Page 113 and 114, can we agree that what that does is provides us with a process for assessing whether or not a view is significant?
I can't comment on the methodology for determining the significance of views. It's not something I'm knowledgeable about.
So you don't take account of that in your evidence?
I don't apply LVIA methodology to my evidence, no.
Page 136, paragraph 8.2, what that tells us there is that presentation techniques, when we're talking about views and impacts, need to be carefully chosen and appropriately applied. They are generally subject to close scrutiny, and they need to be explained and substantiated at public inquiry, and that appropriate illustrative material, especially visualisations, need to be kept in proportion. So we can agree, can't we, that it is important to have an eye when we're talking about whether or not something can or cannot be seen and what the impact of that may or may not be. It's important to take a proportionate approach. Can we agree?
That's what the guidance says.
Help me with this, Mr. Lally. If there's no assessment of landscape character and setting in your evidence, how can you possibly allege any failure to respond to landscape character and setting in a reasonable way?
There are four things that I would say. One is that it's clear that the development is structured around a cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac is the determining influence on the layout, and therefore the development faces in and doesn't face out. It is very much internalised in the overall design philosophy being undertaken. The second point I'd make is that in relation to building types and so forth, which I'm sure we'll get onto, it very much looks like a copy and paste approach. So I'm not seeing a lot of responsiveness to the particularities of the landscape and the nuances of this particular landscape setting. The third point is relating to information contained in the landscape documentation that I cited, but actually pertains to architectural materials that are found within this area. And I can't see that the guidance or the particularities of those materials are applied. And the fourth point I make is the point that we've been talking about, which is all of the interfaces with the development. Because it's been structured around a cul-de-sac, it's resulted in a series of residual leftover spaces, and those open spaces are lined by timber board fences. So the interface between the backs of gardens and the adjacent open space is unsatisfactory.
I'm not sure that was an answer to the question, but
I sought to answer it as best I can.
And I'll move
there are four issues that I would cite.
Can we please, I'm going to move on, I'll deal with it with Mr Jackson, and I'll deal with it in submission. Rebuttal 2 from Mr Jackson, please. You identified views at Wisden Road.
Could you help me with the CD reference there?
I would love to, but I don't actually know what the CD reference is, I'm afraid, and it won't be on that one because that's not up to date. 7.31. Thank you.
Oh, I don't have that in my folder here. Yes, got the most recent rebuttal note that's just come.
Yes,
got it.
I'm calling it rebuttal 2 because it's the second rebuttal from Mr Jackson.
Yep, got it.
So you identified some viewpoints from Wisden Road.
Yes, we identified them together on site.
Yeah, well, but this comes from your proof, doesn't it, and the previous cross-examination that we had to abandon. So that we can understand where we were talking about. So these are the viewpoints that you are drawing attention to. That's correct, isn't it?
It comes from my interpretation of the Sheila reference to elevated land in the wider landscape to the southwest, such as the approach along Wisden Road.
Viewpoint A, please, in the figures. And figure 3.
Yes.
It's simply not visible at all, is it, the development from that viewpoint?
That's correct.
Viewpoint B. Again, we can agree, can't we, if we look at figure 6, it's simply not visible at all, is it?
That's correct.
So viewpoint C, if we look at figure 7, we can agree, can't we, that this view is already clearly influenced significantly by existing housing.
I can agree that one can see existing housing in the view, yes.
Sorry, are you disputing whether or not that's significant in the existing view?
I think, again, the significance of a view, I'm not talking about the significance of it,
okay, that's fine.
because that's an LBIA matter, I would say.
Okay, that's fine, that's fair. Just want to be clear on the basis why you qualified.
The thing I was looking to ascertain is whether it can be seen from the approach along Wisden Road, as stated in the Sheila, and it can. That's the extent of it.
Yeah. So, as I understand it then, as Mr Jackson tells us in the main text of the rebuttal at paragraph 3.9, that the existing settled view is a characteristic part of this view, and you don't dispute that?
I do not.
And we've already agreed, I think, with the inspector's questions that there isn't any perimeter fencing in that view, is there?
No, that's correct.
Figure 9 then, please. It's fair to say, isn't it, and this is, you use the references, a green buffer, and you use the wording attractive landscape and woodland and agricultural fields in your main proof of evidence. So that's paragraph 4.14, if you want the reference.
Yes, and Mr. Carr, in his evidence, paragraph 6.7 states, references the landscape buffer to the A52, so we both concur that it constitutes a buffer.
Yeah. There continues to be, as part of this development, a green buffer that is retained. That's correct, isn't it? We can see it on figure 9.
There's a landscape open space between the existing edge of the development and the new edge of the development. It's no longer a buffer with when one thinks about buffer, we think about the outer edge of a settlement, don't we? So it no longer will have a buffer characteristic as such, I'd say.
Forgive me, Mr. Lally, but isn't that a landscape point?
Well, it's an integration point, because it's when we talk about buffer, it's the interrelationship between an open space and a built space.
So is it your case that there is no longer any buffer between built development and open space as a result of this development? Is that what you're saying?
All I'm saying is that at the moment, the site in its entirety, one could define it as a buffer. It's de facto green, open, rural space beyond the limits of the settlement. This changes that, and the green open space starts to assume a different character. It is no longer a buffer. It has a different status.
But Mr. Lally, that's a landscape point, isn't it? Because any design, if this site is going to be developed, any design effectively would result in that kind of a change, wouldn't it?
The word buffer is about relationship, isn't it? It's a buffer between something and something else. So it's an integration point between the built and the open.
Yeah. There is still a buffer, a space, a gap, a green edge between the development and what we can see as this viewpoint, isn't there? You can see in the foreground that there retains a green buffer in the view, yes or no?
There is a large green space within the view, yes.
There's a large green space, and that's different from a buffer?
I would say it is, because it's no longer sitting beyond the limits of the development, it's integrated within the development.
So I'm on figure 9, ma'am, and it's so you can see there's a effectively it slopes away, I think, down to the housing, and you can see that there is green land in between the two in the foreground, yeah. And then you have the green buffer between the proposed new development and existing as well. So there's two ends to it. Well, I was predominantly asking about the bit in the foreground.
Yes, I'm not sure that's what you were talking about, Mr. Lally.
Oh, no, the
what you
foreground,
just see beyond the
verge.
Beyond the gate. I think.
No, I was talking about the brow of the upper valley sides.
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were referring to. So we were talking before about the site. I didn't realise you were talking about the land in the foreground that's not within the site at all.
I'm asking about the viewpoint and you say in your evidence that at present this visually prominent site provides a green buffer enveloping the southern limits of Ashbourne and foregrounds the edge of town with an attractive landscape and woodland agricultural fields. I took you to paragraph 4.14. I'm asking you to agree with me that what figure 9 demonstrates is that that remains the same, doesn't it, after the development?
But Ms Ogley, my reference to buffer relates to the site, as does Mr Carr's proof of evidence, paragraph 6.7, which talks about maintaining a landscape buffer to the A52. So that is the function of the site at the moment. So if you're asking me to comment on the foreground open space in this scene here, in this view, that's not what either of these references to buffer are referring to.
Mr Lally, if we're talking about the entirety of the site playing a role as a buffer between the edge of urban development and the A52, we're talking about landscape, aren't we, not design. Any residential development of that site would impact on its role as a green buffer. It's not about design, is it? It's about landscape.
I think I've made my point very clear. The word buffer is clearly a separate, in definitional terms, it relates to separation between two things. And as I understand it, it's a separation between the edge of the existing settlement boundary and the landscape and the road, the A52 beyond, and it's buffering those two things. So it's not solely to do with landscape, it's to do with the integration and its role within the settlement as a whole.
Integration and role of settlements as a whole.
Yes, so this constitutes the southernmost face of the settlement as a whole.
Yeah, and that's about the setting of the settlement, isn't it? Which is about views and it's about landscape character, Mr Lally. The importance that you refer to is it's a landscape point, isn't it?
Insofar as landscape is a key component of design, as stated in the planning policy documentation, yes. But it's a constituent part within an overall holistic approach to design.
Let's see if we can agree this. Figure 10, in terms of what the design of the scheme is, so not the role the site plays in the wider setting of Ashbourne, but the actual design of the scheme, we can see there, can't we, the benefits of the proposed landscape planting, providing an enhanced view and buffer to this viewpoint, this approach to the southern face of Ashbourne. Can we agree that this is a benefit?
We can see planting on the upper slopes, and I would say that was a beneficial feature of the scheme, definitely, yes.
At least that's one point, but we don't have to go too far on. If we can go back to the original LVA, please, and I'm sorry to labour the point, but there is another issue I want to pick up there. Viewpoint 6, 7 and 8. Oh. We can agree, can't we, that these are all representative views of the southern edge of Ashbourne from the golf course?
From the golf course, yes.
But they're representative views, aren't they, of the interface?
I think I can't comment on what they seek to represent or not. I mean, that's a point about the LVIA methodology. But I can confirm that they're from the golf course.
Okay. Well, I'll ask Mr Jackson to comment on whether or not they're representative. Paragraph 4.26 of your proof, please.
Yeah.
Question, I hope. Policy PD5, not in the reason for refusal, is it?
No.
It's not in the Council's Rule 6 statement, is it?
No.
You haven't identified any harm to landscape character or visual impact, and therefore there is no conflict with that policy, is there?
No.
So we agree. In your rebuttal at paragraph 2.9,
Sorry, was that PD1?
PD5, ma'am,
Yeah, I thought you said that. Where does it say that one?
paragraph 4.26, Mr. McLally's main proof, second sentence, policy PD5 is towards the end.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No, not at all. Your rebuttal, Mr. Lally,
Yes.
paragraph 2.9, you say that the development turns away from the countryside. Please just keep hold of Mr. Jackson's second rebuttal and figure 10. Which is the photo montage at year 15. That's just simply not correct, is it? You can see that many of the houses have faces, windows, openings, etc., that do actually address and do not turn away from the countryside.
No, I really can't agree with that.
Okay. Back to your main proof, please. Paragraph 4.28.
Yes.
Boundary treatments. We've already covered some ground on this, but let's see where we can get to. In terms of, we've already agreed that in terms of the views you've identified from Wisden Road, that they will not be seen. And that's because of two things, isn't it? There is substantial existing planting, isn't there, at the boundary of this site?
There is substantial planting at the edge of the site, yeah.
Yeah. And also, this site respects the existing topography of the land, doesn't it?
You said the site respects the
development.
The development, sorry, yeah.
The appeal site, the proposed development.
I mean, respect is the cul-de-sac is oriented to run along the contour. To that extent, it works with the topography, but thereafter, I would have to say it doesn't really respect it at all.
We're not moving levels around, we're not making things more prominent than they would otherwise be, because we're working with the existing topography of the site, aren't we?
I mean, no, I don't believe we are working with the topography of the site. I believe that we're cutting a road through and then lining it with pretty monotonous kind of low-grade houses. I think what one sees in this part of the world in particular is an approach whereby small groups of houses are nestled into the valley sides, really enjoying the views out and very much oriented out to the broader valley beyond. And I don't see any of that sensitivity in this development.
Sorry, Mr. Lally, can we just go back to the LVA, please, in viewpoint 6?
Can you remind me which document?
CD 1.38.
I've got a couple of questions, and I'm just hesitant because I don't want to wait till you're finished, but I also don't want to interrupt you.
It's fine, ma'am.
So I'm torn. So if you want to finish this point, and then I'll just mop up a couple
What was the specific reference?
Viewpoint 6, Mr. Lally. It's quite obvious, isn't it, that the existing development that we've already established is a key feature of this landscape. does not nestle in to the landscape. It sits on the ridge and it's highly prominent, isn't it?
Yes, I definitely wouldn't say that that constitutes an exemplar of design.
Ma'am, do you want to go from there?
Just going back, to your rebuttal, Mr. Lally, when we were in 2.8, it says publicly accessible green open space. I just want to clarify. We're talking about the open space associated with the development to the north on Premier Avenue. That's what you mean by publicly accessible green open space?
Really anywhere, ma'am, that is this light-coloured green enveloping the site.
And within the site?
And within the site. It's,
Okay.
As I understand it, that will be publicly accessible.
So it's just the land within the site you're talking about?
That's specifically where I've, drawn
you.
reference, yeah.
Okay, good. And just because you keep saying, and I'm not having a go, but obviously it's sticking in my mind, these examples of what housing does in this area, but we haven't got any photos of examples of what you're talking about, do we? And we don't want new evidence. I'm just saying, do we already have it before us?
No, we don't have anything before us now.
Okay. Okay, that's just clearing up 2 points. I hope that hasn't disrupted your cross-examination.
Not at all, ma'am. Sorry, just let me find where I was. I'm just trying to reread my words. Yeah, I think we don't. That's been asked and answered. We need to pick up the road safety audit, please.
Which document reference is that?
So this was CD 7.13, so it's the appendix to Mr. Carey's proof. We went to it in your first tranche of cross-examination. Can you just put that back together for me? Thank you. Let me know when you've got it.
I've got it, yeah.
Excellent. Page 9, please.
Mm-hmm.
And it's photo 2.3-2.
Not in the one that I've got, sorry. 7.13.
So it should be the appendix to CD 7.13. Sorry? Thank you, ma'am.
I can't see it, I'm afraid.
If you look for a section that says 2.3 at the header of a page, so you're looking for a front page that says Road Safety Audit, Stage 1, as the appendix to that evidence.
I'm wondering if the references have become jumbled or something. Is someone help? Sandra, do you have it at all? Thank you very much. Okay, yep.
Are we there?
Yes.
Yeah, so photo 2.3-2.
Mm-hmm.
Do you accept that the presentation of the close border timber fence on that part of Wyston Road is not successful integration?
I do.
It's a visually detracting feature, isn't it?
It is indeed.
It's not a fair face, is it, of development of Ashbourne?
No.
It's quite clear, isn't it, that the proposed development will address this and result in a significant improvement?
Yes, the back garden of the proposed development backs onto the existing back garden here and will therefore conceal that part of the back garden. So there will be some improvement, I agree.
So it's some improvement, or do we agree that it's a significant benefit?
Well, I'm saying some because you'll still be able to see the timber board from Wiston Road itself.
I mean, that's certainly not something to lay at the door of this appeal scheme, is it?
No.
So why is that relevant, Mr. Lally?
I was just, you were asking me to comment on the visual impact of the fence, and the result of the development will be that some of the fence here will no longer be visible, but the fence lining Wiston Road will be. I'm just stating a fact.
Sorry, Ms. Oakley. This is a really good time for me just to ask another question I had in mind. Is there a photo montage of the entrance as proposed? Is there anything in the design access statement that people...
It's design and access statement, ma'am. I think you can see it at page 63, and that's CD 1.24.
Is that the design access statement? I thought I had it open.
It is the design and access statement, I think. Page 63.
You might have been down there anyway.
Which visuals pack? You can also see it in the visuals pack, ma'am. The most up-to-date one is CD 2.28, and it's view 1. Although I'm not sure, I think that shows the other side, doesn't it? It only shows one aspect rather than going in the other direction. So I think 1 and 2.
Right, let me catch up. So it was, where was the best one? CD.
So I think the best one is in CD 1.24, which is the DAS, page 63. I've got upside down.
Yeah, I've got that open. And page 63.
Yes, I can't see my page numbers at the moment, sorry.
There's a double spread, 62 and 63.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see, ma'am, that's the view, and there are trees that will screen that current fence from I think it's the Red Road development.
It's helpful, thank you.
Mr. Jackson's second rebuttal, I don't think we need to turn this up, tells us that we've got 56% of the site is going to be green infrastructure. That's a significant amount of green infrastructure, isn't it, for a development of this nature?
Yes.
That means that it is clearly landscape-led, isn't it, in terms of its overall design?
No, I wouldn't say that necessarily means that it's landscape-led. It's got a significant proportion of landscape space within it. I agree. I think the key determinant on the layout is the highway. I would say in many ways it's highway-led.
We also know, Mr. Jackson in his second rebuttals helpfully clarified my ham-fisted attempt to give you the right number of trees. It's actually 2,497. Can we agree that the provision of trees of that number, Mr. Lally, is an essential part of high-quality design?
An essential part. It is an essential part of this design proposal, yes. Thank you.
I'm not going to start stepping through all of the guidance on this, Mr. Lally, because we will literally be here all day.
Yep.
But it's quite clear, isn't it, that significant provision of trees and green infrastructure and landscape equals an important part, let's put it slightly differently, see if we can get agreement, an important part of delivering high quality design, yes or no?
The reason that yes, it is important for this development. It doesn't necessarily mean that all design has to have X number of trees
Of course.
to be good design, but for this development, it's a really important part of the design proposal, yes.
Yeah. And again, the significant biodiversity benefits, and I don't think there's anything between us on this, is another key part, isn't it, of how this scheme delivers high quality design.
It is.
You've made reference about the lack of integration of dwellings. You said it in your evidence in chief. You said it again in answers to me about houses nestled in the landscape. Can we agree that that can be achieved using split level houses?
That's one way.
And can we agree that it can be achieved with sensitive landscaping?
Yes, that's a key constituent part.
Yeah, and can we agree that it also can be achieved by working with, not against topography?
Yes, working with the topography is an essential consideration.
In terms of integration via physical connections, Mr. Lally, so I'm at point 2, I think, integration via physical connection, connected street network. So I think I'm a little bit ahead of where I should be. We need to go back to paragraph 4.19 of your proof, please.
Yeah.
So this is where you say, look, there's no connectivity, that's bad design, it's going to be a path to nowhere. Now, of course, we know that the path to nowhere point has fallen away because the path's been taken away and reason for refusal 7's been withdrawn. So we're agreed on that point.
Yes.
CD 5.8 then, please. Page 30. So this is the National Model Design Code.
Uh-huh.
I just want to agree this if we can. This is what's talking, we're being directed to thinking about connected places.
Is there a particular point? that
Well,
you'd like-
it's the first point, paragraph 59, itilised I, connected places.
Yes.
Because what the guidance actually says is that we need to make links at either end of other streets where possible. That's what the guidance tells us, isn't it?
Of course, one can only do it where it's possible.
But where do I find that acknowledgement in your evidence, Mr. Lally, about the practicability and possibility of making a connection?
We can only do things that are possible, Ms. Oakley.
So that's not the question. Where is that reference in your evidence?
I haven't referenced that particular part of the design code document in my evidence.
Now here, it's not in the appellant's gift, is it, to make a connection into Premier Avenue?
Not now that it's been withdrawn, no.
But we couldn't make the connection anyway, could we? There was a gap, that's why it was a path to nowhere. We didn't have the land use rights to be able to make the connection, Mr. Lally.
Are you suggesting that, I mean, it sounds rather cynical for me, if there was actually no means of achieving it, and yet it was included in the proposal, why would that be?
Because officers asked for it, Mr. Lally.
But if it wasn't possible, why would it even be shown?
I think it's not for you to ask questions of me. This is cross-examination, Mr. Lally.
It seems perverse to me.
Well, let's just stick to the questions and give answers to them, shall we?
Yeah, let's.
This appellant cannot sensibly be criticised, can it, for failing to make a connection that it wasn't able to deliver. It did its best. It didn't have the land connecting into the Redrow development. That's an issue to do with the Redrow scheme, isn't it, not this appeal proposal?
I can't make any comment as to whether the developer did its best, etc.
But this is actually really about a lost opportunity when the Redrow development was consented, isn't it? Because if that had complied with the correct guidance, then actually it would have made the connection up to the boundary and we would have been able to connect into it. So that can't be levelled at the appellants. That's a failure of the council.
I mean, that's a hypothetical. We can only comment on the scheme that's before us.
Paragraph 4.18 of your proof, you provide some images there about connected street networks. You say that the left-hand side is contrary to guidance. Have I got your point correct there?
Yes, there's a clear illustration, isn't there, with supporting text that makes that point.
5.6.
Could I have the page reference again, sorry, or the paragraph?
It's Mr. Lally's proof, paragraph 4.18, and the images there.
Thank you.
I need 5.6. Can we find 5.6? To be honest, man, I think we've got about another half an hour, and I know you said you wanted to break about 1.
Does that work? Breaking at 1?
Yeah?
And you'll come back for 15 minutes?
Well, I can't control how quickly I'm getting the answers, so I don't know is the honest answer.
I guess what I'm saying for the audience, do you want to break for lunch now?
I'd be quite happy to, yeah, I'd be quite happy to, absolutely, Mum.
Rather than trundle on near the end and then...
I'm absolutely fine with taking lunch now if that's how we want to play it.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I'm happy either way, I don't mind. No, but I'll need to, yeah.
All right, okay. Let's take a break then. Appreciate that. So we could come back at 1:45 if we so now. Does that suit you?
That's fine. Thank you, Ma'am.